Today I'm going to talk you through the process of creating a beautiful low-key photograph. It's a really moody style that utilises a dark background, so it's perfect for birds with white or light feathers. We're going to go through what to look for in the field to get this kind of shot, camera settings, composition, and then we're going to have a look at some basic edits in Lightroom on how to increase that low-key effect and really add a sense of drama to your image. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome. I'm Sonia from Flying Parrot Photography. I'm a bird and nature photographer based on the Sapphire Coast of New South Wales, Australia, and I love helping people shoot with creative confidence. So what is low-key photography? It's a dramatic style that uses minimal lighting to create a high contrast dark image with a shadowy background and spotlit areas. It's the dead opposite of a high-key photograph, which has a very light and bright style. I have a tutorial on this technique as well. It's a great one to use on overcast days. Low-key is inspired by a Renaissance art technique that Rembrandt was a master of. Now, let me just put on my Italian hat here for a minute. It's known as chiaroscuro, originating from the Italian words chiaro, clear or bright, and scuro, dark or obscure. Great low-key shots are about obscuring background details and deliberately showing a focal point through selective lighting. It's shining a light on tiny details to give a dramatic effect. The first thing we need, pretty obviously, is a dark background. Either end of the day or when the light is dramatic is ideal. You can shoot in fairly bright light, but you'll need to position yourself so dark objects are in the distant background and your subject is spotlit. A cluster of trees, some hills, or just some heavy shadow in the distance will do the job. You can achieve good results even in bright sun if you pay attention to our next key element. Now we need to underexpose the background to add to the effect. Aim for around 2 stops, maybe more, maybe less. The brighter your subject is against the dark background, the more you can underexpose. If you're shooting mirrorless, you can do this by eye. Just keep a close watch on the details you want to highlight so they are exposed nicely. Otherwise, set your exposure compensation to -2 and experiment from there. This is a creative technique, so we don't need to show every detail. It doesn't matter if you have parts of the shot totally underexposed and lacking any detail. But we do need to make sure that we have element number 3 covered, a strong focal point. Things to consider are, what would you like to reveal to the viewer? Is the light guiding you to the focal point? Is the highlighted area nice and sharp? The eye is an obvious choice, but it's not the only option. You can also try a small in-frame shot or choose other details to highlight. I used to use this technique in my commercial photography days, and it works well across all genres and in black and white, but I especially love it for birds and wildlife. You may already have some photos that are good candidates for low-key. If you're looking to fast-track your bird photography, I do have details in the description of my coaching options, both online and in person. Otherwise, you can download my set of free guides or just hit subscribe for more free tutorials. Now we'll have a look at deepening the effect with some editing. First, we want to look at the direction of the light source. It's always a good idea to work with the natural direction for the best result. Usually, the light should be facing towards the subject's face, but not always. As long as your focal point is illuminated, you're good to go. We'll start with our little kookaburra. It's a pretty stock standard shot. There's nothing particularly exciting about it. I can see that I've got the exposure quite nice on his body, but the background's pretty boring, and we've got this distracting little piece. I think it was the top of a sign there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop our kookaburra down and really put him in more of a rule of thirds position and try and get rid of that little thing at the bottom. Just taking away distractions is always a good idea, and cropping's such a good tool to be able to do that with. All right, so that's looking much better already. Now, the next thing we're going to do is use masking. Now, masking is a really valuable tool with this technique. It's a valuable tool in general. And the reason is obviously we don't want to edit all the bright parts out of our bird while we deepen the background. So we're going to need to use a mask. I'm going to select the subject and just see how it does. Oh, it's done a really good job. Okay, it's really neat and tidy. Now, the secret to success with masking is getting a clean mask, and sometimes you will have to try a variety of different ways to go about that. But that's done a really good job. So I'm just going to pull the highlights back a little bit, just a little bit. And you see how that's just increased a little bit more detail in these feathers here. That's really what we want to see. I'm going to actually increase the contrast on this. And I'm going to use just a little touch of dehaze as well, which does tend to add a bit more contrast. That's looking pretty good. And because it's done such a good job with creating that mask, we can then go back to our mask and we can duplicate and invert the mask, which will select the background for us. Now, here's where I want to really deepen that background and just take all the detail away. So we've got really quite a stark shot in the low-key style. So that's looking really good. I'm going to increase the contrast. So it's a very strong image, but I kind of like that. Now, let's go back to our bird again. I just want to add a little bit more in the way of shadow. So I'm going to just deepen the shadows a little bit more. This is a creative technique. It's not about showing all of the bird perfectly. It's probably not to everybody's taste, but that's okay. It's just something fun to play around with. Right, so that's looking pretty good. The only thing I would like to do is just add another mask. And I'm going to use a radial gradient this time. I'm just going to put that around the eye area. You might have seen me use this technique before. I really love it. I'm going to just increase that size of the center part. So the distance between there and there is the feathering. So we had a really small, you can actually do a really small center if you just want to highlight the bird's eye, but I want to just feather that out. I just want a little bit more light on his face. So I'm just going to bring that up. Look at that. And that just brings in that little bit of extra gleam into his eye. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to do a tiny little bit of increased saturation just to enhance that low-key effect. All right, and I think we're done. That's a very simple example, but I really like it. Compared to the original, which was a bit bland and boring, this photo is just, it grabs your attention and it's got more punch. Let's move on to another example. I've chosen this duck for a bit of an edit because it's one of those images that's probably sitting in your Lightroom too or your editing suite. It's okay, but the water's just a little bit flat. It's just lacking in vibrancy and color. And I think it will make a great candidate for a low-key image. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight in and just create a mask on the duck. Now, I am aware we have got a little bit of an issue here. If we just have a look, toggle on our little highlights, we can see we have got a little bit of overexposure here, but I am going to do some work on the duck anyway, so I'm going to deal with that within that mask. So straight away, I'm just going to jump right in and just create a mask for our subject. We're just going to see what the computer does first. Oh, it's done a pretty good job, except it's cut his head off. But I don't think that's going to matter too much, but I will just add some more to that mask. I'll add the head using a brush. Okay, there's a little brush here. I don't have to be too fussy because it's a bit wibbly wobbly down there anyway. I might just reduce my brush size down a little bit and just get a bit of that beak in there. Just an indication of it. Because if you edit a bird with a reflection, you should also edit the reflection at the same time. Just add that little bit in there. And I'm not going to worry too much about this side because it's in the shadow side anyway. Okay. So he's looking a little bit bland. So I'm going to trim down the highlights. I might bring the whole exposure up on the duck a little bit. I'm going to bring the shadows up a bit. Bring those highlights back down. I don't like this little spot here, but I might deal with that with a brush a little bit later. And he's looking a little washed out, so I'm going to increase the blacks on this. There we go. That's looking better. And I'm going to bring the whites down. Because we had quite a nice, easy mask on this duck, I'm going to now duplicate and invert that mask so that we can edit the water. I think it's done it. Yes, there it is. Now, let's bring that water right down. Oh, yes, look at that. Much more exciting. Now we're getting into a little bit more of a creative shot. So where do we go from here? Well, let's look at our light direction. We've got the light coming from this way. You can see we've got this little bit on here, which I'm going to fix in a minute, which is a little bit too bright. And we've got dark section over here. What I want to do here is create some tonal variety in the background. So I'm going to create another mask. This time I'm going to use a radial gradient, and I'm going to do a fairly big one down here. And I'm going to increase that center point. I'm going to remove. I'm going to subtract the subject out of there. So my duck is not in this gradient. And then I'm going to bring the exposure up a little bit. And I don't want to bring up the exposure on the duck because he already has a couple of little spots of overexposure. So I'm going to increase that quite significantly because I want this color to add some more vibrance. And I'm going to go down and just use my dehaze tool just to bring a little bit more clarity into that area. See, that's looking better already. Now, this dark section, because we're doing low key, we want that to be really dramatic. So I'm going to go ahead and create another mask, this time using the linear gradient, and I'm going to drag that over here. I'm going to subtract our subject again, and then I'm going to drop that exposure down just to increase that sense of drama. So that's looking much better already. Let's just go up and have a look at what we've done. So from that to that, that's looking good. I do have a couple of little minor issues here, so I'm just going to correct those now. I'm going to remove this little spot here using the erase tool. I'll just click on that. My computer is a little bit slow. Oh, there's my favorite rainbow wheel. I see a bit of that one. And another little spot there. We'll just get rid of that one. And that one. And I can just see this has popped up. This is a little AI status. It just needs a little bit of tweaking. It needs to render. Now, keep in mind, I only have about 10% of my library stored on my computer. Most of my images are on the cloud, so that happens to me quite frequently. It's to save the remaining life in my laptop. So that is something that you may not have to deal with. Okay, now, I'm really liking these ripples around the duck. So I think I want to actually enhance the effect of those ripples and just make a little bit more drama with those. So we're going to go back to our masking tool. We're going to create a new mask using color range. And I'm going to click on that color and we're just going to see what that does. Oh yeah, that's done a good job. There's a few things I want to remove out of this mask. I want to remove this section here because I don't want to add any more light to the shadow side of our bird. And I don't want to add any more light to these guys either. So in this color range mask, I'm going to select subtract. I'm going to get a brush. I'm going to start off with a fairly small brush and just brush on this section here. Remove this out of the mask. And I'm going to remove the beak because I don't want to add any more light to the beak. I'm quite happy with the beak the way it is. So I'm just going to scoop along that like so. Now I'm going to increase the size of the brush, go pretty big, and I'm just going to belt these out of here as well because I don't really want that any detail up in that part of the photo. Okay, brush, brush, brush away. Maybe those two as well. These ones here are still persisting. Okay, now that's looking good. Let's have a look what happens when we just increase the exposure on that just a little bit. Look at that. So that's just adding another element to the photo, just adding a bit more of that sense of drama, and that's looking quite good. I think we're nearly done here. I'm just finding the duck still does look a little bit washed out for me. So I'm going to create, yes, another mask. I'm going to use the brush tool. I'm just going to bring that size back down to about there. This is just a little quick one just on this part of the bird that looks a little bit washed out. And I'm going to increase the blacks on that section and I'm going to bring those whites down. I could actually remove those little white sections altogether, but I don't mind them. They're okay. I don't think it's too big a drama. I'm just going to leave them in there. And we have got them in the reflection as well. So if we did remove them off the duck, we'd need to remove them off the reflection too. But I think that's looking quite good. Let's just have a look at what we would be without masking. And we'll hold that down. If you hold down that little I key, it'll show you work without the mask. Look at that. See, that's kind of just a bit bland and boring. Whereas here we've got a really nice sense of drama. It's really making the bird's eye pop. And in fact, let's do my usual little trick just as one little finale. He's already got a fairly bright eye, but I think I will just create yet another small mask, radial gradient, like so. I'm going to just tilt that around a little bit. If you hover over the side here, you'll see this little arrow, and that means you can rotate it so that it fits perfectly in the duck's head, because we do not want to go outside of the duck's head and start brightening up areas in the water, because it will be obvious and not look very good. All right, so we're just going to punch that up a little bit more. I'm going to bring up the contrast there because we don't want it to look too washed out. Maybe even bring the highlights down and just increase the black. Really increase that sense of drama. All right, that's looking great. Now, the only thing I am going to do is just crop that down to a 16:9 so that it fits nicely on my video screen. And while I'm at it, I just want to mention, see how we've got these sections here at the bottom? I don't want to cut it off if I can avoid it, not too much. So I'm going to sit somewhere about there. I just like it nice and neat. I don't like things crossing over the edges. See that bit there? That's kind of bugging me a little bit, just that bit sitting there. So I'm going to this is probably just personal choice. Other people may not notice this, but I'm just going to use my little Band-Aid tool again, and I'm just going to brush over that and just wait for AI to work its magic. Takes a little while on my computer. It's a bit overworked. Okay. There we go. And there's our beautiful duck. It's a vast difference from what we started with. Let me know in the comments if you've had a go at shooting in the low-key style, and don't forget to tag Flying Parrot Photography if you post a photo to your socials. I'd love to see it. Happy birding and talk to you soon.